Well, good morning and welcome to UUC. I am not Riche. My name's Bob Marlowe and I'm subbing in for Riche today. So if you're able, please stand as we sing our opening song, Lean on Me. Well, sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. We're glad to have you with us. UUCS is a vibrant congregation and we appreciate your unique backgrounds, beliefs, or lifestyle. If you're one of our longtime members or have been here a short time, or if you're joining us today for the very first time, we're delighted to have you. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to those here now and those who are streaming our services. It is our mission to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world. Or in short, to create meaning, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I am Lisa Conger, your lay leader this morning. We have a special guest speaker with us today, Jim Kershner. I will be introducing him more fully prior to his presentation. And of course, Bob Marlowe introduced himself. So please note in your order of service, there are several things that you should pay attention to that are coming up, events and opportunities. So in the meantime, please take a few moments to greet one another and say hi to someone you haven't met yet. Thank you. You'll have time to visit one another a little more after the service during our coffee hour. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. There is a bronze bust of Karl Maxey at Gonzaga Law School with the inscription, "He made a difference." And he certainly did. Our guest speaker will share with us the life of Karl Maxey. In the light of his passion for civil rights, I will share this poem by Charles Thomas entitled, "We Are the Fundamentalists." Not those who claim the name, but those of us who believe in human rights for everyone, who believe in fundamentals of fairness, of equality, of equity, who believe in recognizing injustices of past, of present, and being accountable for ending them, who believe in caring for nature, who believe in restoring, in maintaining the environment, who believe in working towards peace, toward freedom for all. Yes, we are the fundamentalists.
You may stand if you're able. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds and who we want to wrap in our love and care. We kindle light this morning for a relatively new member, Paul Bastian, who was taken earlier this week to Sacred Heart Hospital by ambulance after having a stroke. He and his wife Jan would appreciate any healing energies we could offer. We light a candle for all those suffering because of war, violence, and other crises in our world these days. Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, Palestine, Cuba, Somalia. For all those living in fear in our country because of ICE raids and other threatening circumstances. And a candle of blessing for the peaceful No Kings demonstrations across the country yesterday. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. those named aloud and those remembered in the silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world this hour we hold in our community of compassion. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
The song is for the orphans and for the separated, the unwashed and the searching, and for the decimated, for those who feel rejected and those who shoulder shame, the wounded and neglected, and those no one will claim. He calls you son when you didn't have a father. He's a friend to the widow when she finds herself alone. He's a lighthouse to those who need a beacon, a haven of rest to the rolling stone. The song is for the drifters who find no place to land, the restless and the grifters who walk on shifting sand, for those who feel the hunger and dwell in discontent, the aging and the younger when love's not evident. He calls you son when you didn't have a father. He's a friend to the widow when she finds herself alone. He's a lighthouse to those who need a beacon, a haven of rest to the rolling stone. Calls you son when you didn't have a father. He's a friend to the widow when she finds herself alone. He's a lighthouse to those who need a beacon, a haven of rest to the rolling stone.
Thank you, Bob, for your wonderful story. It's time for Story for All Ages. You know, when I was a child, I enjoyed reading fables and short stories from different countries. I still like them, reading. Well, why? Why do I read them? Because they teach universal truths about human behavior. And today, I'm going to tell you a very, very old Chinese story called A Small Gift. As I was reading that story, I asked myself, why sometimes we look down on those who are different from us. And here's the story. Let me put my glasses. A poor country boy came to the city to become an apprentice of a very famous master. The master praised the boy, who had traveled so far to learn from his teachings. "Tell us what abilities you have," the teacher asked kindly. The boy was puzzled. He did not know what to say. Then the teacher had all the students in the class introduce themselves and describe what they can do well. One by one, every student said what he did very well, or even better than the others, like do jumping tops. Oh, no, they do spinning tops. Yeah, spinning tops, jumping rope, or play table tennis. "Okay, now it's your turn," said the teacher to the newcomer. The boy thought for a while before saying with some uncertainty, "Well, I have a very loud voice." The boy's answer made the students giggle. You know, those city boys often look down on the country folks and their rural style of life. Some time passed. One day the teacher took the class to the mountains. The students scattered far and wide over the forest looking for mushrooms. When time came to start home, the teacher could not see two of his students. He asked everybody in the group to call the missing boys' names. Cries and calls went up from many throats, but their calls were lost in the forest. What to do? "Let me try," said the country boy. He climbed a big rock, braced himself, took a deep breath, and cried several times, "We are waiting for you. It's time to go home." His voice blasted like a trumpet or a megaphone. The boy's words bounced off the trees and rolled down the mountains. His voice was so loud that it shook the pine needles. It was not long before the missing boys emerged from the trees. The teacher looked at his students and said, "Every person has dignity, no matter who you are. Treat people with kindness. Recognize their worth. Even a very small gift has its use and value. And you know what? I will tell you, if you want to know, what is my small gift. I can speak cat's language. I have a friend in London, a cat friend. And when I spoke to the cat friend, she said, "London cats are the best." She said she was sorry she couldn't be for the rally yesterday. That's why she sent a message. Cats don't work with ice. Thank you.
Thank you, Luba. Now is the time in our service for meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable, reflective posture. Close your eyes if you wish, and take several deeper breaths while I lead you into the silence with this poem by Rosemary Watala Trummer, a Colorado poet. Nothing. Today, for a time, I am more red rock cliff than river. I sit and do not do. Perhaps some part of me crumbles. I do not resist the crumbling. I do not resist stillness. I am weary of resisting. so weary that today I promised myself I would make time for nothingness. What pleasure I found in not rushing, not rising, not streaming, not traveling to, not coming from. Why have I put off again and again the chance to be intimate with nothing? Yesterday, when I heard myself tell a friend my experience of nothing is what I think God is, then I wondered why I fill my hours with so much everything. So today I cliff, I rock wall, I sandstone, I canyon, I sit still and undo and meet the great nothing that holds up everything.
When you look into music, what do you see? Does it tug at your heartstrings? Does it make you feel free? Like a bird on the air, a tune can take you up there. A song's like a loved one, it wants you to care. No, a song can't stop the world from going round. No, it can't stop the world from being unsound. But it might change a heart, change a heart or two. No, a song can't stop the world, but it might stop you. Well, our hearts get tired, we have to fake being strong. Then we give love to no one, no one stays very long. Oh, when your heart gets weary, drop on into a song. Your eyes will shine brighter, and life may not go so wrong. No, a song can't stop the world from going round. No, it can't stop the world from being unsound. But it might change a heart, change a heart or two. No, a song can't stop the world, but it might stop you. Well, music takes me where I long to be, flying high, feeling free.
Thank you, Bob. This is my introduction of Jim Kershner, our speaker today. He is the author of Carl Maxey, A Fighting Life, published by the University of Washington Press, which was a finalist for the Washington State Book Award in 2009. Mr. Kershner was a columnist and a reporter for 25 years at the Spokesman-Review and retired mostly in 2011. He still writes the paper's daily history column. He is also a staff historian at historylink.org, the online encyclopedia of Washington State history, where he has written more than 250 historical essays. Mr. Kershner has written 8 books, including Transit, the Story of Public Transportation in the Puget Sound Region, and The Sound of Spokane, a history of the Spokane Symphony. Please help me welcome Jim Kershner to our podium.
Well, at first I thought I'd tell you how I came across this story. I was a reporter for the Spokesman, and I was writing a big piece on segregation in Spokane because I had learned from talking to people in the city's black community that, we didn't have Jim Crow laws here, but there was de facto segregation. So I was doing a story on back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, what hotels were welcoming, what restaurants were welcoming, what social clubs were welcoming to all races, and, well, not all of them were. And so the one person I knew I really needed to talk to about this was Carl Maxey. He was, already legendary in Spokane and certainly in our newsroom. But I knew I needed to talk to him because he was responsible for changing a lot of those laws and customs in the city. So I had this, I went and talked to him, had this long conversation about restaurants and everything. But toward the end, he said, "But to really understand this, you have to know where I came from." And so he started telling me his life story. And I remember thinking, well, that's not what this story's about. But if Carl Maxey's going to tell me his life story, I should just shut up, keep my tape recorder running, and listen. And the result was this book. That was the last interview he ever gave, because he died just a month or two later after that. But what he said during that interview was essentially he was an orphan in Spokane and was kicked out of an orphanage because of the color of his skin, and no other orphanage would take him. So at that point, I realized that, I knew he had this bronze bust. If you walk into the Gonzaga Law School, the first thing you pass is the bronze bust of Carl Maxey. So I knew where he'd started, which was way down here, no family, no advantages of any kind, and where he ended up. And I didn't know what I knew was that's got to be a good story, how he went from there to there. And once I started looking into it, I realized it was an even better story than I ever imagined. And today I'm going to tell you the short version of it. The long version is the book. The short version is this. We'd be here for 4 hours if I told you the long version. So Maxey never knew his mother and father. He never even knew who they were. He was born in Tacoma in 1924 and was soon given up to adoption for reasons nobody really knows, to a couple in Spokane named Carl and Carolyn Maxey. And they named him Carl Maxey Jr. after his adopted father's name is Carl Sr. But Carl Sr. was a sometime railroad worker, sometime pool hall janitor. Carl never knew him because he disappeared out of his life when he was an infant. And his mother was ill, so she had no means to support him. So Carl was sent to the Spokane Children's Home and Orphanage on the north side as, quote, a charge of the county. She died just a couple years after that. One of his early memories was being brought to the office of the orphanage and taken to her funeral. Now, he was 8 years old at this point. He was truly an orphan now. His best friend at the home was Milton Burns, the only other, quote, colored orphan at the home, although Milton was mostly American Indian. One of Maxey's enduring personality traits had already emerged by this time, a burning desire to protect the underdog. Maxey was big and athletic. Burns was small, and Maxey didn't allow any of the other kids to pick on his friend. When I interviewed Milton Burns, he said, "My first recollection of Carl was that he was always protecting me." However, Maxey couldn't protect Burns or even himself from the abuses of the orphanage after the lights went off. The children, including Maxey, were regularly pulled out of bed at night and beaten by the assistant superintendent, said Burns. Burns distinctly remembered once Carl getting beaten with a rake handle. But then in 1935, when Carl was 11, some of the older orphans went to the police. They escaped from the orphanage, ran to the police station, and told them that the superintendent was having, quote, improper relations with some of the boys. Within 2 days, both the superintendent and the assistant superintendent had tearfully confessed to having sexually abused some of the boys. Within 3 days, justice acted swiftly in those days. Both men had pled guilty and were behind bars at the state prison at Walla Walla, where they each served 5 years. Neither Maxey nor Milton Burns were involved in that scandal. It involved older boys. And Maxey later said, "Thank God they didn't like black kids." Yet Maxey and Burns suffered for it anyway. The scandals, covered extensively in the press, sparked a general round of house cleaning at the Spokane Children's Home. The board hired a new superintendent and instituted reforms. One of those reforms, the board voted to kick Maxey and Burns out of the home. Maxey said he was never told why, but he always suspected that the scandal was the excuse. And when I went to interview him, he showed me a framed plaque on the wall. He had found the minutes to the board meeting where he was kicked out of the school. October 8th, 1936, this is what the board meeting said. It was moved that the two colored boys, Carl Maxey and Milton Burns, be returned to the county, having been in the home for years. Motion carried. It was moved that the board go on record as voting to have no more colored children in the home from this time forward. So when I interviewed him, he said, "They threw us out. It sure as hell says that, and the incident that precipitated it was sexual misconduct, all involving white people. So if you wonder where some of my fire comes from, it comes from a memory that includes this event." Before long, the two boys ended up at the refuge of last resort. They had nowhere to go. Some people in the black community, a woman took Carl, he was 11, to the other orphanages in town, and they basically shut the door on him and said, "Go away." So there was nowhere to go. They ended up at the Spokane County Juvenile Detention Center. Quote, "We hadn't committed any crime except that of being boys too young to take care of ourselves." After a few months, the boys, actually more than a few months, after a year, the boys were rescued from the juvenile detention center by a remarkable person and a remarkable set of circumstances. Father Cornelius Byrne he ran the Indian mission school at De Smet, and they had a little like a garden that the children there took care of, and so every month he would bring produce up to the juvenile detention center and donate some of this food to them. And one day, Father Burns said, "What's with these two boys? I see them every time I'm here. Why are they here?" They said, they didn't do anything wrong. We just don't have anywhere else to put them. And Father Byrne basically said, "You know what? I'll take them." And so this was a turning point in Maxey's life. It was really one of the first really good, positive things that ever happened to him, and he was grateful to Father Byrne the rest of his life. So they went to the Coeur d'Alene, the Sacred Heart Mission School. Now, a lot of these mission schools have been criticized for a lot of reasons, but this one was, and Father Byrne was not, he was a positive influence on everybody at that school, as far as I can tell. And he certainly was on Maxey. For the first time in his life, Maxey began to feel as if he had a home. "I haven't known any fathers in my life," he said. "The closest thing I ever had to one was that Jesuit priest." He began to thrive. He became a conscientious student and a talented athlete. He was big, strong, and fast. Soon he was a star of the school's basketball, baseball, and football teams. Father Byrne also taught the boys the science of boxing. He arranged boxing matches for his boys at the rough logging and mining camps in the area. Maxey fought his first boxing match at the age of 13. His opponent was 33, and Maxey beat him. He left the mission school at age 15 because Father Byrne had granted him one last favor. He had arranged a full-ride scholarship for Maxey to Gonzaga High School, today Gonzaga Prep. Soon after graduation from Gonzaga High School, Maxey entered the service. Well, it was 1942. You can understand why. He wanted to be a pilot, but the U.S. Army Corps was all white. So he became a private in a medical battalion. The Jim Crow laws and the hateful attitudes he encountered at Southern Army bases shocked Maxey. He began to realize that his purpose on earth was to fight for justice and equality. He later said that his social awareness was born in the outrageously segregated Army, unquote. When he arrived back in Spokane, he realized right away that his hometown wasn't all that welcoming either. As he got off the bus in full uniform and walked into the train station cafeteria, he was refused service. He resolved at age 21 to become a lawyer. He attended the University of Oregon briefly and then came back to Spokane in 1948 to attend Gonzaga University's law school on a boxing scholarship. Now, I don't think a whole lot of students at the law school these days have boxing scholarships, but that's the way it worked then. And he didn't just have a boxing scholarship, he became a nationally known boxer. He was undefeated in all of his collegiate boxing matches for 2 straight years, had a 32-0 record. King Carl, as he was nicknamed, frequently had to go easy on his opponents so he wouldn't hurt them. Maxey derived a lesson from that. Quote, "Nobody ever thinks about that, not knocking somebody out you're clearly superior to. That's a far more decent deed than trying to addle somebody's brains." By the end of his second year, he had one more tournament to face. That was the NCAA collegiate boxing championships in 1950. And you got to understand, in 1950, boxing was a really popular collegiate sport, a really much more popular sport overall in America at the time. So he went to the NCAAs in State College, Pennsylvania. This was covered on the front page of the New York Times, for instance. They witnessed what the tournament referee later called the quote, the most masterful piece of boxing he had ever witnessed. Maxey defeated Michigan State's Chuck Spieser by 1 point in the finals. becoming, by the way, which meant that he was the individual winner in his weight class, and that he gained enough points for Gonzaga to win the NCAA championship, which unfortunately, by the way, is the only NCAA championship Gonzaga has won to this day. He was crowned when boxers arrived home by plane the next day. This is a big deal in Spokane. 1,000 students were jamming the tarmac at Geiger Field. The fans broke through the state patrol's restraining lines and rushed the plane. Maxey and the other boxers were hoisted atop their shoulders and carried through the screaming mob. He never fought another bout. He retired from the ring to devote his energy to his law classes where he was struggling. He pulled his grades up and graduated in 1951. Then he became the first African American in Spokane to pass the bar exam. The city still did not have a black doctor or dentist, nor did it have a black teacher, a situation that Maxey immediately set out to rectify. Eugene Breckenridge, a black man, had applied to be a teacher with the Spokane School District with what appeared to be sterling credentials. 4 years service in World War II as an Army sergeant, a bachelor's degree in chemistry with a minor in biology, a master's degree in education from Whitworth College, and an award for being the college's outstanding student teacher. Yet he was not deemed qualified to teach math and science to 7th graders at Havermale Junior High. His application languished for 2 years while Breckenridge made a living as a window washer. Maxey immediately went on the offensive. He went to the superintendent and smothered him with what he called a mix of friendly persuasion and principled argument. Maxey said the superintendent came to, quote, recognize the morality of Maxey's argument, yet morality was apparently not enough for the school board, which had to approve all the superintendent's hires. The school board balked, as they had done with earlier black applicants. They said, why should we rock the boat? So Maxey, now as a lawyer, he had a little clout. He said he threatened to slap them with an NAACP lawsuit. The board finally relented and hired Breckenridge. This case ended the color bar once and for all in the school district, and by 1969 there would be 20 black teachers in the district. 16 years later, Breckenridge was named the Washington Education Association's Educator Citizen of the Year, its highest honor. Throughout the 50s and 60s, he continued to take on cases that would challenge the racial status quo. He was instrumental in ending 2 pernicious real estate practices, redlining and restrictive covenants, some of which still are on the books today, by the way. We didn't quite end them all. He helped end the racial restrictions at the city's all-white social clubs by using a clever legal strategy. He threatened to take away their liquor. In a series of lawsuits, he argued that, yeah, they could discriminate all they wanted, but not if they applied for a public right, and a liquor license was a public right. Most clubs eventually chose liquor over discrimination. In 1963, Maxey played a key role in what came to be known as the haircut uproar. A Gonzaga University student named Jungaba A. Johnson, a Fulbright scholar from Liberia, was refused service in John Wheeler's downtown Spokane barbershop. He just sat there. This is the way it worked. He didn't really refuse service. He just sat in the waiting room while everybody else was picked to come up to get their haircut, and he sat there for 2 hours waiting to be picked and never was. That's how it worked. Johnson's fellow students took it on as a cause. The 35 Gonzaga students, most of them white, showed up a few days later to picket the barbershop. The protest aired on the national broadcast of CBS News the next day. Maxey promptly filed an official complaint to the State Board of Discrimination. A month later, Maxey argued the case before the board's tribunal. They deliberated less than 3 minutes before ruling against the barber and ordering him to cease discrimination. And this guy, by the way, never did comply. He just chose to retire instead. Later, in 1963, Maxey gained national exposure for taking on the case of Will Cawthon, a young black fugitive from Georgia. Cawthon had been convicted in 1959 of murdering a white gas station attendant. but in the trial lasted less than a day, and nobody testified on behalf of the defendant. Anyway, it was a joke. I believe that Maxey called it a judicial lynching, essentially. But Cawthon, while he was on death row, escaped from prison just days before his execution. He hid out. He actually got on the first train he could find, which took him to, of all places, Warden, Washington, where he got off the train and worked as a farm worker there for years until the FBI finally tracked him down. So Maxey, and Georgia then tried to extradite him back to Georgia to be executed. Maxey helped uncover information showing that Cawthon's murder trial had lasted less than a day. No blacks were allowed on the jury, and Cawthon's lawyer had been participating in his first and only trial. It turned out this guy that was defending him, it was his first and only trial, and and Maxey discovered that he was now an organist at a dance hall in Miami, or in Georgia. He referred to it as a perfunctory execution. Governor Rossellini eventually denied Georgia's extradition request and spared Cawthon's life. In 1964, Maxey volunteered with two other local lawyers to provide legal services for the Mississippi voter registration drive known as Freedom Summer. He helped free Stokely Carmichael and hundreds of other volunteers from jail, and he walked the streets with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Maxey was shocked by the conditions he saw there and later described Mississippi as, quote, the tail end of America. In the 60s and 70s, Maxey threw himself into politics. He ran unsuccessfully for several local offices. He became presidential candidate Eugene McCarthy's state spokesman in 1968, witnessed firsthand the turmoil and violence of the Democratic Convention in Chicago. By this time, he had become staunchly anti-Vietnam War. When a Gonzaga student was arrested for shouting warmonger at Spiro Agnew, the vice president, during a speech in Spokane, Maxey successfully defended him. In 1970, Maxey ran a quixotic primary race for U.S. Senator against one of the nation's leading hawks, Scoop Jackson, our state senator, or U.S. Senator. Even though Maxey was a lifelong Democrat, he had turned against Jackson over his support of the war. The campaign turned vitriolic. Maxey called Jackson, quote, a Napoleonic little senator, and a, quote, political schizophrenic, and the senator from Boeing. Maxey ended up getting 13% of the vote. It was tough. It was a little tough going up against Scoop Jackson at the time, but he was pretty happy to get more than 10%. This attention he received in that campaign helped him to land the most controversial and heavily publicized case of his career, the trial of the Seattle Seven. They were members of an anti-war group called the Seattle Liberation Front, which in 1970 organized an anti-war demonstration in front of Seattle's federal courthouse. When police intervened, the protests turned violent. The courthouse was vandalized, windows smashed. Angry demonstrators raced downtown and smashed storefronts all through Seattle. But the Nixon administration strategy at the time was to, actually this is getting eerily familiar, was to pick some people that they said organized this rally and fomented a riot. So they picked these 7 people, the Seattle Seven, to be the scapegoats for it and charged them with conspiracy to riot. Now, in order to understand how bogus this was, at least one of them was not even in Seattle on the day of the riot because he was arrested in Berkeley at another riot the same day. Anyway, and these guys, they didn't even know each other, so they were conspirators who and it was ridiculous. Nobody actually had organized this riot. They'd organized a protest. Some of them had organized a protest, but nobody had organized a riot. So this trial was a really crazy show trial in Tacoma. The defendants hired Maxey because Seattle 7 member Susan Stern, who, by the way, was the craziest one of the 7, quote, he was the most respected lawyer in the state of Washington, and he was black. George Bolt was the judge, famous for other reasons as well. He determined that the trial would not become a repeat of the Chicago 7 trial the year before. 2 weeks into the trial, most of the defendants were slapped with contempt citations for repeatedly disrupting the proceedings, as well as for smoking marijuana in the defense room. I mean, there was a lot. So they were all cited for contempt. When they were brought back into the courtroom to have their contempt citations, they all tore up their citations and threw them in the air. One walked up to the bench and threw a Nazi flag at the judge. That didn't go over very well, with the judge at least. Federal marshals eventually waded in, triggering a wild fist-swinging melee. Marshals started dragging the screaming defendants out of the courtroom. The gallery also erupted in fighting, and a number of onlookers were forcibly evicted. Some of the defense lawyers, he was one of 4 defense lawyers, were also dragged out of the courtroom, but not Maxey. Maxey did his best to keep his clients from joining the melee. In fact, the one that he was sitting next to, he held down in his chair so he wouldn't get in the fight. That guy was the only one who wasn't convicted of assault and spend time in federal prison. And by the way, when I interviewed one of the Seattle 7 for the book, he said he became a friend of Maxey, and he said every time he talked to Maxey said, if you would have just listened to me, not a single one of you would have gone to jail, because they had won the case already when all this happened. I mean, they had virtually won the case. Bolt actually singled out Maxey for praise. Mr. Maxey, quote, Mr. Maxey did everything he reasonably could to prevent or restrain his clients and other defendants from misconduct. And even Maxey called it a disgraceful, riotous courtroom event and the most difficult case I ever tried because of the personalities of the defendants. Stern, for her part, said that Maxey treated her throughout the trial like, quote, a lovable but unruly daughter. During the 70s and 80s, Maxey became the region's most sought-after divorce lawyer, a branch of law that Maxey equated to war, yet his law firm was committed to devoting 20% of his time to pro bono work and continued to take on civil rights cases. But he also took on some high-profile cases which were a little controversial, especially the case of Ruth Coe, the mother of the South Hill rapist Kevin Coe. I don't know if you remember this, but after Kevin was convicted, his mother, Ruth, hired a hitman to kill the prosecutor and the judge. Actually, they caught, the hitman was an undercover agent, so he had this all on tape. She didn't just want them killed, she wanted them to be in diapers the rest of their lives. She told the hitman, if you can pull that off, that would even be better. She ended up being convicted, but Maxey was credited with getting her a surprisingly light sentence. He used every trick in the book to basically say she didn't know what she was doing. And she only got 1 year in jail on work release for trying to get a judge and prosecutor killed. And by the way, this became one of Maxey's best lines came out of that, because Kevin Coe claimed to reporters that he was very involved with her defense and was sort of organizing the strategy for the defense. And somebody asked Maxey, is Kevin Coe really helping you on this? And Maxey said, like the shark helps the swimmer. By the 80s, he had gained an elder statesman status in the profession. He was actually nominated to be a Supreme Court, or a retiring Supreme Court justice basically said that Karl Maxey should be his replacement, but that didn't happen for various reasons. By this time, he was getting increasingly cynical. Ever since Martin Luther King's assassination, you could see he was very optimistic about the state of racial relations in the country up until then. And then he began to feel like nothing was going to change, and he said, quote, the whole damn country is a bunch of Archie bunkers. And he was just expressing a lot of pessimism about whether all this work he'd done and all this stuff had been worth it, and whether anything had changed, and he wasn't convinced that it was, basically. On July 17, 1977, just a day before he intended to announce his retirement, came the shocking news. Maxey had ended his own life at age 73 with a gunshot to the head in his Spokane home. He left behind no note. His wife, Lou Maxey, reported that he had been upset at the thought of retirement. One of his sons noticed a distinct change in his father's mental state about a week before his death. Yet, the doctor had never diagnosed Maxey with any ailment besides high blood pressure. The coroner ruled the death a suicide and performed no autopsy. Milton Burns had visited him a week before and said he just seemed exhausted. He told Burns he'd been in the lawyer business for 46 years and needed to get out. So maybe Karl was simply worn out. But as an aside, after I wrote the book, and I wrote the book before the news had come out about concussions in sports, and I started reading some of these stories about some of these football players and boxers, and how at the age, when they got into their 70s, all of a sudden they became suicidal because of the trauma. And if you recall, he was a boxer for 3 years and had been hit in the head a number of times. So there's no way to know. There was never any autopsy, but I wonder if that was part of the situation as well. It was probably a combination of several things, but anyway, whether Maxey knew it or not, he was the catalyst for many important changes in anti-discrimination laws in Washington. And as we've already heard, if you walk into Gonzaga Law School, the bust says he made a difference. Thank you.
I guess we stand and sing our closing song together. Seems appropriate. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Our benediction is this simple but profound statement from Ram Dass. We are all just walking each other home. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.